We've got a lot of people here from different generations, and I want to just, while we're changing microphones, I want to ask you a question. Is your generation better than the last one? Is your generation better than the next one or this one? What do you think? Did you like your generation? Was it good? Okay, so now we have Asatiani come to talk to us about the generation.
When I try to think of the happiest moments of my life, I just close my eyes and I imagine my childhood. Now, some of you may think that it is very funny that I'm standing in front of you right now, and obviously I still haven't lived through my childhood, so why am I talking to you about this? Well, for me personally, childhood is a separate place and a separate time. Now, I grew up as an only child, and at that time, I used to spend my summers at my grandma's house, and she lived on the outskirts of town. And being the only child, I didn't have a lot of people to play with at home, obviously, so every morning I used to go out and play with my neighbor's kids. But then I went back home, I did my studies, I read books, and then I relaxed again by watching television. And at this point, I have to tell you that I think that I grew up in the best generation that my country had yet to offer. Now, why? Because I think that I got, so to say, the best of both worlds. You see, I grew up in a time when technology and studies were just beginning to have this big conflict. I grew up in a time when technology was starting to spread in my country too, and it was very different from my parents' generation, for example. I grew up watching cartoons. And some of you may argue that cartoons are very bad for us, that they make us less intelligent than we already are. But I, on the other hand, learned English from the cartoons, for example. I learned human relations from cartoons. I learned a lot about different cultures from cartoons. And again, I don't think that cartoons are bad at all. Some of you may also say the same thing about movies. The movies nowadays may not be as good as the movies in the older generations. And some of you may say that they encourage children to leave the books alone and to just watch the movies like mindless little creatures. But on the other hand, let's take some examples. Harry Potter. Before the movie came out, it was quite a popular book and it was known in a lot of places. But as soon as the movie came out, it became an international bestseller. Everybody knows about Harry Potter right now. Am I right? And as for the recent examples, The Great Gatsby just came out a couple of weeks ago, and there is not a single copy of the book left at any of the bookstores in our city right now. Now again, you might ask yourself, if the movies don't encourage children to read books, then why is there such a different action happening? Why is it happening that children are more interested in the books, which they've seen movies coming out about? So, again, I personally think that it's not about books and movies being against each other. It's just about finding the perfect balance. And the balance is all about your attitude towards either books or the movies. Now let's move on to another subject. What else did the new generation bring? It brought the technological advancement. Now, technology. What is the biggest breakthrough that you can imagine concerning technology in our age? It's obviously a computer. So, computers, again, have become quite a controversial topic because children, observing that their parents are constantly working or playing on a computer, want to do the same. And it's only natural that the game industries have taken advantage of this fact and have created a whole new range of products, especially aimed at children. Now, some of the games might not be as educational as the others, but you can't deny the existence of games which teach children math. And as you've seen on the video, which we tried to show you as the first opening video, as the first TED Talk of this TEDx presentation, you can obviously see that children have developed logical thinking with the help of the computers. But except for helping them to think, what else do computers give us? I think that one of the biggest advantages of having a computer at home is obviously that everything is one click away from you. Nowadays, there are 3.3 billion computers sold worldwide. And we cannot really deny the fact that any child in an MEDC has grown up under the influence of a computer. And instead of going to a library to get your report ready for school, you can just search it on the computer. And instead of searching for 1,000 books and 1,000 pages to get that one fact, you can just see it on the internet, and you can compare different resources. And then you can decide for yourself with your own judgment what to write in your report or what to adopt as your knowledge. Now, computers and technologies, movies, media, what do they live about? And that's obviously art. Art as a form of expression is obviously one of the biggest areas where each generation has their own influence. Now, I grew up in a traditional Georgian family, and when I talked to my father about this topic, he shared his own life experience with me. He told me that his grandfather and his father were so opposed to him listening to the new music, the Western music of his generation. And that's Pink Floyd, Beatles. And nowadays, he, on the other hand, is opposed to the music of my generation. And he thinks that it's just a collection of some useless and tasteless sounds. I am a representative of my generation, but I don't necessarily like or listen to the generation that my people have liked about the music, especially. So that is why I'm kind of in agreement with my father concerning some of the facts about the current music. But I still don't dislike it as much as my dad does. And here you can see a bit of a conflict. And the whole point of this speech, and why am I telling you this, you might ask yourselves. But what I wanted to tell you is that in every generation, there will always be a conflict about some aspects. And how do we solve this conflict? The only way I see for this is to compromise. Now, nobody said that compromise is easy, because if everybody could compromise, there would be no more wars or violence in the world. But we have to compromise, at least with our parents, at least with our families, and start this compromise with ourselves. We have to make some amendments. We have to find the perfect balance between having fun and studying, or doing things we want to do and doing things that we need to do. We have to try to lessen the conflict. We have to try to argue less, and we have to try to see the positive sides of each other's thinking. We have to find ways in which we can take advantage of every situation, and that includes the new technologies with the new generation brought, or the new cultural advancements, or just everything. We just have to always look on the bright side of life. Thank you.